As we're almost about a month from the 2025 NFL draft and past the combine and just starting to get into the pro day numbers, we're getting a better idea of the players that are going to be available for the Seahawks when they're picking at 18 in the first round. And what's becoming very clear is that there is a very strong, distinct possibility that the Seattle Seahawks will be looking at their value board in their war room to see who is their number one player on the board. This is what has driven John recently, especially early on in drafts. And that player is a defensive tackle. I know, this is going to send some Seahawks fans off the rails as the Hawks just handed off a second-round pick for Leonard Williams about a year and a half ago at the trade deadline and then made him a $20 million a year defensive tackle, then stacked on top of that a first-round pick in Bryon Murphy last year as well. So going back to this, well, why would you do that? What sense could it make? Well, when your name's Kenneth Grant and you just might be the new Haloti Ngata, it makes a lot of sense indeed. And that's what will be driving this type of selection, is the Seahawks will be picking this very fine prospect out of Michigan because he would be a nose tackle and he would come in and be able to then allow Bryon Murphy to be fitted to where he is best suited, which is a 3-tech and not inside taking on double teams like he was having to last year by and large. Grant is a guy that becomes a little bit of a forgotten man on the defensive line for that Michigan defense because of the fact that Mason Graham is so well regarded. But this kid is right there step with step as far as Graham goes, as far as a prospect and the upside and what he brings. And he is a purified nose tackle. He can do everything that you want for that position first and foremost, because you'd like to get pass rush, but what you really want to have first and foremost is that stoutness, that strength, that power at the point of attack, that immobility, even when you've got the double teams bearing down upon them. And he's got that. 6'3", plays up at about 340 pounds, 33.5-inch long arms, so checks all the boxes as far as size, weight components, strength components, and all of that, length as well. And then what you like as well in addition to it is if you run at him, he's immobile, he's going to take down that run play right where it stands, but then he also has lateral ability in his movement. I don't know if I'd go full on to say he's athletic, 340 pounds, but when you do tend to look at these guys, you see them and they really can't move very much. They can go a couple steps to the right, a couple steps to their left. If the ball carrier's around that, if the play's around that, that's about what they can give you. With him, he shows an ability to track all the way around the line of scrimmage, all the way down the line of scrimmage. You got an outside zone run, he can track down and go make that play out in space and make the tackle, in addition to being so strong at the point of attack. He's also very smart as a run defender. He's got a good feel for where the play is going to go. So not only does he give you the good skills you look for, the great skills you look for in a nose tackle, he gives you some mobility from the position, and this is where I think some of the Haloti Ngata comps come from. And don't take my word for it. Daniel Jeremiah, who's a very respected voice out there in NFL circles, a former scout for the Baltimore Ravens, was in Baltimore when they were scouting Haloti Ngata coming out of Oregon as a prospect. And this comp comes directly from him. So when he's giving you that comp for this kind of player, you probably want to listen. And while it'd be a little bit freaky from some Seahawks fans to be hitting this so hard on this defensive line, especially with some of the holes on the offensive line, especially with some of the need for the quarterback, we do have to remember what's going to drive this really from John's perspective is going to be value. Is this the most valuable guy you've got on your board versus the rest of the prospects that are available to you at 18? And I think there's a really good chance, not necessarily just specifically by what he does as a run defender, but that's the forefront of what he does because he is a grade A run defender. He's an elite run defender for the nose tackle position because he gives you the full skill set within there in that nose tackle role, but it's also the pass rush because that agility also comes into play as a pass rusher. Michigan runs a lot of stunts and a lot of loops and a lot of twists, and they ask those defensive linemen to have to get lateral fast and still get upfield, and he showed a real knack and ability to do that. If he gets upfield and you as an offensive lineman don't have him squared up on the block in pass protection, he's going to get by you because you need both of your feet, you need both of your hands in front of you to be able to handle his power and strength, which shows up in that way. And he's kind of converting some of that speed to power with that natural 340 pounds of size because a guy like that shouldn't move this good. We didn't get a combine 40 time with him or a 10-yard split, but I'd imagine for his size, weight, he's going to test very well under those markers, and you feel this with him as a pass rusher. Something that the Seahawks defense is going to do a lot of too as well with the stunting and the loop game. Dirty with his background going back to Dallas, that's something that they did a lot of, and I would expect more of that to come into play on the Seahawks defense, especially if a nose tackle like this, which isn't just an immobile one, but one that actually can move and get upfield. He also shows a really good job when he's going after the passer of locating those mobile quarterbacks and being able to track them down in space, getting off the block, getting on top of the quarterback, getting a little bit of the short area quickness and burst, which is so unusual for a guy at 340 pounds and is just part of why you're getting some of these comps to Haloti Ngata. That athleticism, quote unquote, and then that power, and then that size. You just don't usually get this kind of combination of traits in a typical nose tackle. So I know that this would make a lot of Seahawks fans maybe revolt a little bit, maybe cringe a little bit, but it would be a value pick. You could make the argument for it, as I think this kid's upside is true. It's maybe not as high as the highest of guys up in this draft, but that's the reason that he does dip down into 18. But this is a guy who will help solidify the run defense, who will free up Bryon Murphy to move over to the 3-tech position, his natural position, and who will also give you some pass rush ability in addition to being a good run stuffer. Not a bad way to go at 18, and this defensive line would be one of the most hellacious, fearsome defensive fronts in all of football.